People really need that guidance. So the more that like these great advisors such as yourself and anybody that, we've been working with or I've gotten to meet can get their story out there and explain how they're going to help these people and how they're going to experience and why they care, why they're doing what they're doing, is going to be really powerful. So I would really suggest to advisors like, if like being digital marketing wasn't your thing, figure out how to do it now. This is the time because people are not leaving their houses. Like, here in LA, we're back in lockdown pretty much again.
Be all good. So Shabana, I'm excited that I get to be the first podcast appearance for you. That was very exciting to find that out earlier. I doubt this will be the last now that we've kind of got you out there. People are going to be hitting you up. So I'm excited to have this conversation about branding and marketing. And I thought real quick for listeners, I would just give them an intro to how we got connected, and then I'll let you introduce yourself. So, Altruist is one of my favorite companies to follow. Full disclosure, I've used the platform for clients. I have a personal account on there. So I'm very familiar with it. But as I watched the unveiling of the company, I really noticed the branding and the marketing, which you were the brains behind. And I love the cleanliness of it. And honestly, when I did the rebrand for RLS, Altruist was one of the inspirations. Altruist, Tesla, Apple, those were the brands that I really liked the way that they look in the messaging. So that's how you first got to know your work. And then being on the Human Advisor, thank you for allowing me to be that. Got to meet you in person out in LA. We've done a couple grows and have just really appreciated getting to talk to you and kind of hear your way of viewing things, but then also seeing your work in the form of Altruist. So I like to try to look outside of finance to get inspiration for how advisors can market and brand themselves. But I also think when you find a financial company who is doing it in what I would call the right way, it makes sense to learn from them as well, because there's nuances to finance that tech and the other areas can't go to. So that is why I would love for the audience to get to know you and we can have this great conversation we kind of have mapped out. So with that, real quick, Shabana, give everybody your quick intro, how you got to Altruist, how you got to marketing and all those things.
For sure. So for anybody who doesn't know who Altruist is a fully integrated digital platform for financial advisors. And basically our aim is to remove any friction that financial advisors have when managing their clients' money. So it frees them up to really deliver a delightful and seamless experience for their audience or for their clients. I, as you mentioned, am a part of the marketing team over there. I'm the marketing manager. And how I came to Altruist is actually a funny story. So my background is not in finance at all. Like I have a SaaS background and all those things. And Altruist actually slid into my DMs like on LinkedIn. And so side note, if you are on LinkedIn, it's uber important to make sure that your information is up to date and that it really represents who you are and what you're about. Because if somebody is on there like scouting, you're going to pop up. And the better your profile looks, the stronger chance you have of actually showing up in people's searches. But going back to the DM, basically, I don't know if you've had this experience, but I've dealt with a lot of recruiters on LinkedIn, and it sometimes ends like dead in the water or whatever. But so when I got Ryan's message, I almost ignored it, but something in my gut was like, go back and check this out. And huge shout out to John Sienna, who I love and adore. Like he's amazing designer extraordinaire. I went and checked out the website, as you're familiar with, and I was blown away by it. It was like super clean, super beautiful. Messaging was like direct. I knew exactly what they're about. So I was like, all right, I got to entertain this. Next thing I know, I'm in the Venice office, as you've been there. It's really cool. Everybody's tatted up and really chill. And I was like, these are my people. Like, this is where I want to be. And next thing I know, it's like I'm a year and a half in, and I look back and I'm just like in utter shock and awe about like what we've created. It's been such an incredible journey, and I've learned a lot. It's been a challenge, and I'm just really proud of what we've accomplished over there.
I want to go back to LinkedIn real quick because it plays into this whole marketing, branding conversation. How important was it for you that when Altruist reached out to you, slide into the DM, that they actually had looked at your profile and the language that they used to get your attention and then talk about the opportunity was actually you, as opposed to the canned stuff that people get spammed with all the time. And the reason I want to ask is I think that there's opportunity for advisors to do some prospecting in the DMs, but I don't think the cookie cutter messages that when you actually look at the person's profile, you would know that they would not be a good fit. Like, I laugh when people send DMs to my to LinkedIn asking me about opportunities with other firms. Like, if you read and follow anything I do, you already know I'm where I'm supposed to be, and I absolutely love what I'm doing. I'm not going anywhere, so don't even waste the time. So how important was it for you that they actually took the time to look at your profile and judge from that you would be a good fit, and then tailored the message to you as opposed to just cookie cutter stuff?
It meant a lot. I mean, it got my attention, right? Like, even though I said, like, I almost ignored it, like the way that Ryan formatted the message, like he really took the time to read my profile. He like called out highlights from my profile. So it just made me realize, like, okay, they're actually really looking for somebody like me. Mm-hmm. And it also gave me like kind of a bit of confidence when I went in there, because like they already knew what I was about. They already saw that I could potentially be a really good culture fit for them. And they took it even further, and it ended up working out really well, obviously. So I think it's really important. And, when you're looking at people's profile, if they're taking the time to like sit down and really build it out, that's just a reflection of how they're going to be when you get to work with them. Mm-hmm. It's like if they're putting in that much detail into it and taking time to find pictures that really represent them or whatever. Because on my LinkedIn, I have an image of like Los Angeles, because I love film and whatnot, and this is my home, and really laying it out. It makes it easier for people to really connect with you for the right reasons. Mm-hmm. And it takes away all like the superficial crap. Mm-hmm. So
I mean, it's personal branding, which is why I love it. And yeah, I think there's a huge opportunity for advisors. Your personal brand worked for finding new employment opportunity, but our personal branding can work to finding the right clients. And I think that personal branding, is a buzzword, and a lot of people kind of dismiss it, but really personal branding is not as complicated as we want to make it be. It's really your reputation. It's who you are. And it's just communicating that. And I think that if you take that, your reputation, what you stand for, and as you do communicate that consistently, then your personal brand evolves. Like, I don't know if you actually set out to say, here's my personal brand, as opposed to it develops over time. Exactly. But if you think about the way that it worked for you and Altruist, the same thing can happen for us as advisors and potential clients. Having who you are, what you're about, resonating with people on LinkedIn. I think there's a huge opportunity on LinkedIn that I've neglected over time. So, and I think so many people do LinkedIn bad. That makes it even better opportunity, because if you can do it right, you're going to stand out for doing it the right way. But today's talk is not about LinkedIn. I don't know how we went down this path, but this is why I love this. We started with your backstory, and we're getting some gems from you on how to look at approaching LinkedIn. Before we get to kind of what advisors can learn from Altruist and your vision when it comes to marketing and branding, kind of let's step back to Altruist's overall arching plan, to the way you guys want to market and the brand you have created. How did you go about separating yourself from traditional finance? I mean, the first off is the platform. Like, it's all new school versus old school. So you've got the product, but still the messaging, you could have gone with the North Stars and the compasses and the boats like everybody else does. Kind of what's the strategy and what was the approach and maybe the why behind maybe marketing more like a tech company as opposed to a financial company?
Yeah, well, I mean, I got to give major credit to John Sienna. Like, he really, prior to me even getting there, he really set up the foundation for the marketing there. And I came in and just helped optimize it with him. We're like the new kids on the block, right? Like, I mean, if you saw like our t-shirt that was like circulating around the conferences, we definitely are going against the grain. And I think one of the advantages that Altruist really has is our marketing department. We love to tell stories. We're big storytellers, and me and John love to write. And when we write, we really want to make sure it's like written in a way that speaks to somebody on like a more personal level. Like, we don't want to just go out with the cookie cutter messaging and things like that. Our whole core is about making financial advice accessible for everybody. And that really needs to be represented in everything that we do. we're named altruists. So everything we do has to be altruistic. It has to be approachable. It has to be human. And, with the Human Advisor podcast, like Jason, I mean, the guy is such a visionary. Like, I love Jason. He's incredible. And, that gave us an advantage because, like, more than just being altruist in this platform, we wanted to make it a space where financial advisors could come and actually be themselves and help them find their clients and to help them do their best work. So it was really about putting our customers at the forefront.
Right.
And not just making it all about ourselves.
Right. Let's go back to storytelling. What do you mean by storytelling? Because I don't know if advisors necessarily. So one of the first books I read in the profession was Storytelling for Financial Advisors. So like that's where I first go to. But I love storytelling. I'm doing a webinar with another company about storytelling because I believe in it so much. And I have a definition of storytelling as an advisor. But my first thing goes back to is using stories to sell recommendations and product over time. But I think I might be wrong, but I think you may have a different approach or different meaning behind storytelling. So when you talk about storytelling that you and John love to do, what do you mean by that?
Like for me, I mean, I can't speak to like John. Obviously, I wish he was on with us because he's incredible. But for
I should have thought of that. I should have had a dual guest podcast.
We'll have to do that in part 2. Like,
but you know what? No, there's time for John later. I want you getting all of the shine. So this we did it right.
The pressure's on, man. The pressure's on. For like, so when I came to Altruist, I was thrown into the podcast, right? And one of the things that I love just, outside of work is biographies. Like I love to get to know people. I love to know their story and their history. And, with Altruist, if you go like to our website, to our social media, all these things, we're really, really picky about the images that we use, like how we say things, how we represent things. Like we wanted to have that substance, that depth. And, through that storytelling that we do, through like giving financial advisors that safe space to really be themselves, it allows us to create a space where we can build trust and really nurture everyone we're speaking to. And, shout out to all the advisors that love us and are supportive like you. It just makes our job so much easier to really get that message out there. And, no matter where you go, whether it's our t-shirts or like at like conferences or anywhere, like you read just like quick things that we write and it really kind of sticks in your brain and it makes you like think further and keeps us like kind of front of mind for advisors. And it's different from the cookie cutter, like other things like, wealth management and things like that. We're taking a more like different approach where we're really bringing the human to the forefront. Whereas now it's like we're in an industry where it's like, it's all about the robo advisors and things like that and instant gratification and whatever. We really want to bring back that human element to what we're doing.
When I think of storytelling as an advisor, I think part of it is, because I talk about telling your story. I think part of it is telling your story as an advisor. Like, what is your story? What's your personal story? People, they don't want to just know you as the advisor. They want to know you as the person as well. So the human advisor is a great example of that, the success of that. But I also think that part of your storytelling as an advisor is sharing your views and philosophies on, what a plan means. How do you approach planning with your clients? It's telling what that experience might be like working with you. So I don't know, I've never surveyed advisors, but I don't know if they think when you say storytelling, telling my personal story, why would anybody care about that? Well, storytelling is not all just your personal story. I do think that's part of it, but the story then becomes, what's it like working with my firm? What's it like with me? Yeah. I believe in, passive investing, and here's the reasons why. And that all starts to tell your story of being an advisor, the story of your firm, and lets people determine whether or not they want to work with you. So I think that the storytelling concept I love, but it encompasses everything. It's everything from you personally to how you work with clients, what the client experience is like, why you've structured it that way. Like all of that becomes to be your story or your firm's story, and you need to tell it.
Yeah. And it's, just to kind of add to that too, just to really like simplify it. So storytelling or branding or whatever, one way to really think of it is just like just to kind of sum it all up is the experience, right? Like what is the experience that you want to deliver to your clients? Like you just said, what is going to be working with you? Because one thing I will say prior to coming to Altruist, in all honesty, I looked at the financial industry as being skeezy and greedy. Like all the financial advisors I came across, like either one, they didn't want to work with me because I didn't make enough money, or two, I met them and I was like, there's no way I want to like leave my money with this guy. So, coming to Alturas, it was really important to like, give that stage to like the good advisors to share their story. And like you said, like explain how they're going to work with them. Like Scott Frank, like how he does the whole EQ and really gets in the psychology of it. Like that's amazing. Like when I was listening to that like episode, I'm like, wow, this is really cool. And like, picking up little tidbits from that is really important.
I want to piggyback on your experience coming into the finance world, of what your thought of financial advisors, the lack of trust. Like, that's obviously a hurdle we have to overcome, but it's another reason that I love this concept of content marketing, building our brands, telling our stories, because now we as the advisors, especially in the independent world, we can control the narrative about us. And I believe a rising tide lifts all ships, which is why I would love to see every single advisor finding one way to communicate their story, whether it's a blog, a podcast, video, multiple, whatever it is. But if we let more and more people out there know that there are good people doing good work, it's not the old Wall Street brand or the brands that they think of, that there's way more advisors doing good work. We just have not been able to tell our story before. So we need people out telling their stories, because if more and more people like yourself before coming in find a Scott Frank because of his podcast, and you start to see, hey, finance isn't as scary. There's people who actually care about their clients. Let me start working with Scott. And now you have a positive experience working in the world of finance. You tell somebody else, and now I think that the narrative about financial advisors begins to change. It's going to take time. So I was sharing with you before we hopped on that, like, I have this goal of one day not being Gary Vee, but having this role in finance to help advisors tell their stories and kind of do marketing and be creative, because I would love to be a small part of the change in the narrative to the world of finance. If we can get more advisors like myself to be able to tell their story, I think then the bigger brands see the success that we have, and then they're going to copy. And then they're going to start humanizing the work that they do. They're going to start highlighting their advisors, even though they're a big firm. And now it almost looks like we're a unified front of advisors trying to help everybody. And it's up to you, the consumer, to find the right advisor for you, whether it be you would rather work with a woman than a man, or you want to work with a life planner rather than a traditional planner, whatever it might be. We're here. You just have to find the right person for you. And we're all telling our story to allow you to find that person ahead of time.
Yeah. And right now is like the best opportunity for financial advisors, because like people are free, like given the state of the economy in the world right now, like this is a time to get in front of these people and say like, hey, I'm here for you. I'm going to help you figure out your financial situation so that you can ride the next like couple of years, because who knows what's going to happen. People really need that guidance. So the more that like these great advisors such as yourself and anybody that, we've been working with or I've gotten to meet can get their story out there and explain how they're going to help these people and how they're going to experience and why they care, why they're doing what they're doing, is going to be really powerful. So I would really suggest to advisors, like, if like being digital marketing wasn't your thing, figure out how to do it now. This is the time, because people are not leaving their houses. Like, here in LA, we're back in lockdown pretty much again, so we're all married to our freaking phones and like, the TV and all these things. So you really need to figure out how to connect with people through like digital devices. Like now's the time. So, I mean, my advice to advisors is like, you don't have to do everything and you don't have to be everything to everyone. Pick one at least, like whether it's, I don't know, Instagram or LinkedIn or Twitter or whatever it is. Or if you're a great writer, just start getting your voice out there and be super consistent about it. You may not be like the greatest, like right out like the door, but like the more you do it, the easier it's going to get. You'll start to optimize as you start to kind of gauge like the response that you're getting. And I'm so sorry, like the street cleaning guy is going by. So if you hear that, forgive me.
No worries.
I live in LA, man. It's a city. There's always going to be noise here. But I just like lost my train of thought here. But anyways, yeah, like I think, I look back to the episode that you and Taylor did on the Human Advisor and how you guys just said, just start. Just start. like the first time that you post something, it's probably going to be your mom and like your wife who looks at it or whatever and likes it. But the more you keep doing it, the more exposure you're going to get. And as you do that, don't be afraid to like ask people that you really trust, like, hey, can you share it out to your network? Like, can you give me your honest feedback? Like, do you think this is working? What do you think I should change? And once you start getting a following, and this is something I actually learned at Altruist, like start using surveys, like start figuring out what is it that your audience is looking for? What do they want to know? Because that's really going to help you build that content strategy going forward. Because then you're going to start creating and developing content that they're going to like really care about and absorb.
That no one has mentioned that I can think of that doing a survey. So that may be, early on, that may be the nugget for the whole episode. I know that's not going to be, but that's something that no one has brought up, is like using the survey to fine tune. I was going to throw a couple comments on there, and then we're going to get to a few things that you kind of highlighted ahead of time that are ways that we can help advisors kind of make progress forward. But I think that we all battle imposter syndrome. And a lot of times the imposter syndrome is with our peers, but as you're putting your content out there, whether you are great at doing it or not, you've got to think if the reason you're creating content is to grow your business and your audience is the public, you already are an expert. You know more as a financial advisor than 99% of the people out there. So whether or not you communicate it as beautifully as Morgan Housel can do, it doesn't matter, because the person on the other end reading is learning something, and you're already positioning yourself as an expert and building that trust. Over time, you get better communicating, you get more comfortable, you develop a style. Like, that's great. But if you're writing for your business and to educate people, then it doesn't have to be perfect, because the person reading or listening is going to learn something. So remember your audience. It's easy to look at the people that are out there doing it and they're way far ahead of you. But just also realize that even once you hit your first publish button, there's somebody below you that's looking up at you and is like, man, I can't believe that they're doing that already. So we're always comparing, and you just got to refocus on who your audience is.
Go ahead.
No, go ahead.
I was just going to say, just kind of like buckle down on that too. Yeah. Always write for your audience. Like even when you're like building your website and things like that, don't speak to like the search bots and all that stuff. Make sure that you are speaking to your audience, to another human. And then the other stuff is just like the added layers to it. Like that's really important. Always make sure you're speaking to your human, to your audience.
And I think that a lot of times people think about content SEO and how that helps and the benefits of it. And I don't dismiss that SEO works, but I also think that I think it depends on your vision for your marketing strategy. For some people, their vision and the way they want to grow and who their audience is, maybe SEO targeting is the right way. For me, I can't write trying to hit the same words over and over. Like, I just can't do that. I think that if you're really going down the approach of like the Seth Godin, building your tribe, finding your people, then you need to write the way that you need to write. And if it's horrible for SEO, that's okay, because it's going to find the right people and resonate with them. Maybe it takes a little bit longer. Maybe it means you get a little bit less web traffic, but you want quality over quantity. So that's the way that I've always operated. Is I've never written anything. Take that back. I just started doing on our company website, we started a blog. We stopped it because of COVID, but we did a few rounds of what to do this week in and around Fishers, Indiana. So that was SEO driven, but everything else, advisor related, everything financial planning related has been, I had something I wanted to say and I wanted to communicate that in a way I thought people would enjoy. And I didn't do any SEO focus on it. So I think there's different ways and there's camps that you can be in, but I really think that the brand building resonates more with writing to educate and communicate in the way that your people want to hear, rather than trying to hit those keywords to rank up on search.
Yeah, exactly. Because like at the end of the day, you want to work with people you want to work with, right? Like you just don't want to work with every single person and like all that stuff, because then it's just not authentic to you and you're not going to enjoy it anymore. So whatever you're creating, and like this is one thing too, whenever I see content, you can always tell whether the person like really knows their stuff and if they actually really liked writing the blog post, or if they just wrote it because they wanted to like rank high on the search engine, and like nowadays, given that we're like in such a fake world with filters and things like that, people actually prefer like the raw and the imperfect over like like filtered and pretty and flawless and all those things. So, yeah, I really love that idea. And I think, at Alters, that's one thing we strive to do is just keep it really real. People are going to resonate with that. And we're going to get the clients that we want to work with because of that.
And that's why the street cleaner is staying in this episode. I'm not cutting it out. It's real. So,
Yeah.
so I think we've convinced listeners, and I think people listening have heard this over and over, but it's always good to hear it from different people with a little bit different perspective, but the underlying message continues to be the same. So you sent over a list of things that you've noticed, whether it be before coming to Altruist or things you guys think about from Altruist that advisors should really hone in on. So I kind of want to work through those. So this is kind of more of the tactical part of the conversation where advisors can take some of this stuff and run with it today. But I do want to read one thing that you wrote. I thought it was real good. You said, before you can reach out to anyone, you really have to know who they are, what they're about, and what ultimately they care about. It's not just about what's in their accounts. Yeah, the money's important, but it isn't the whole story. What are they trying to achieve through their financial journey? And why are you the right advisor for them? Once you know this, it gets a lot easier. So before even let me make sure I'm interpreting this right. Before you even dive into the website and the other things we're going to talk about, you've really got to identify who it is that you want to work with, whether that be age, career, whatever that niche might be, knowing who they are so you can communicate to them. Am I interpreting that right?
Yes, you are. Okay. Yeah. And then also why? Why do you want to work? You have to know exactly what it is. How are you going to help them solve their issues or help them get to where they want to go? Like, you have to be able to answer that question. That's going to really help you solidify your foundation for your branding, for your marketing, for your strategy, for your company, And when you really know that, like the back of your hand, everything else I feel like falls into place a lot easier.
Well, let's dive into the website. Let's say we figure that out. Let's talk about the website. And I'm going to give a real quick experience for me with websites. So when I started my firm, we didn't have a lot of clients, trying to keep budget low. My brother-in-law helped me build a WordPress website, and it wasn't bad. Like, we did a good job, but it wasn't amazing. And then one day it disappeared. Like, I don't know if the WordPress template went away or what happened, but it was gone. Like, there was nothing there. So we patched it back up, and that happened around the time that I was thinking about doing the rebrand. And I actually so John hooked me up with a designer friend of his to come up with a new logo, and that was a phenomenal experience. I think that it's expensive, but I think going through the process of working with a creative designer to come up with your company logo and coloring is phenomenal, because they're going to ask you questions that as an advisor, you're probably not going to think of. So I had an amazing experience with her. I love what she came up with. So I took that and then worked with a local guy that did website design, and he built my website. And before, I viewed my website as it's a website. You have to have it. It's there so people know you're real, but I didn't really care about it. And now with my new website, I love it. Good. I have pride behind it. And I actually view this website now as an asset. Like, I spend time going back in and seeing how can we revamp it? How can we make it better? Making sure it's up to date, because I've spent the time and there's been money put into it. Maybe that's part of it, but it captures everything I want RLS to be about. And I want the clients that come in the future, it speaks to them. So I absolutely love it. So I can't recommend enough spending the money to go through, at minimum, the creative design process with somebody. And then maybe you can find somebody who can help you up on the cheap, or you can use more of a production website. You don't have to have it custom built. But I went from a website's just a website to, okay, I get it. This thing it's an asset of mine. It's an asset of the firm. And I am proud of the way that it looks.
Yeah. I mean, your website is your digital business card, man. Like, we are in a digital realm now. Like, everybody's like married to their little device. Like, you really got to create a website that, like, is quick to say who you are, who you work with, what you're about, like, what's the experience of working with you. Like, you got to be able to, like, have that come through within like 30 seconds and on a phone. So this is like another thing. If you take anything away from building a website, please make it mobile friendly. Like, make it mobile friendly. Like, there's so many times where I go to check out a website, I'm like, I can't deal with it. And like, I'm off, like, I don't go back to it. Definitely invest, like you said. Like, this is one thing. Like, if you have a good website, it's gold. because to kind of go back to just really quick to branding and things too, when you are developing your personal brand and everything, make sure you have flexibility in it to evolve with it and to grow with it. Because one thing I will say, I worked with a company a few years ago that was like brand new back in 1989, and they built their website when the internet came around. They were using that same thing in 2017 and hoping that it still resonated. And I'm like, dude, you guys can't do this. Like, you got to invest in it. It was kind of like tooth and nail to get them to do it, and they finally did it. But yeah, definitely, leave room to grow, to just change your game and things too. So
advice on website: when somebody goes to an advisor's website, should the prospect see themselves? I don't know which way it is. Themselves on that website, or should it be like advisor all over the place?
Speak to your audience, man. Like, win them over. Like, when I go to a website, I need to be able to see myself. I want to see like what the experience is going to be like to work with you. And if I see myself in your website, I know that you understand me. And it's going to make me that much more inclined to actually reach out to you and want to connect. It's like, you get me, you get what my values are about, you get what I'm trying to accomplish. So I think it's really important to definitely showcase who it is that you want to work with, because they're going to find you.
So I have a strong opinion that if you want to stand out amongst financial websites, there's like the building in the hero's journey into your website, that you want your client to see themselves being able to go through the entire process with you. Obviously you need to be on there and your accolades need to be there, but I think that going forward, if you want to stand out, like the home page doesn't have you and the team sitting, at a desk or something. It's your ideal client seeing themselves on your website, something about them, how you can help them with their problems, and then they get to you and the team. And I think that avoiding, again, the stereotypical financial images of boats and, compasses. If that's your website, I apologize, but I'm thinking of people who want to stand out. Like, this is the Advisor of Tomorrow podcast. I'm all about where we are going in the profession and how we can change the image of the past. And it's not doing the same things of the past. I think it is building websites like Altruist has, or looking to fintech companies or technology companies. Like, look at their websites and how beautiful they are, how much fun they are to navigate around. Why can't our websites be that way?
Yeah. And listen, it's not about you, right? It is about your client. It is about how are you going to make their life easier? Like, you have to convince them, and you got like basically 30 seconds to do it. So, I mean, it's great. Have your accolades and say how awesome you are and things like that, but don't make that the first thing they see when they jump onto your page. Like, it has to be like, all right, they're speaking my language. I get this. And then they're going to invest more time to actually go through your website and learn more about you, and then like see like what you bring to the table. But
it all goes back to understanding who you want to work with. So I think that's an important takeaway, along with make it mobile. How important is it to have content on your company website?
If you're a good writer, have it on there. Like, the more free information that you can give to somebody, the better. Like, and when I say free information, make sure that it's like, it has substance. Like, they can actually take it and like go and execute it right away. And this kind of ties into like the SEO stuff. Like, if you have really rich content on your website, that's organically going to help you in the search box. And when you're writing the content and all these things, like, to kind of help you with keywords, there's a lot of great tools out there. Like Neil Patel's website, I don't know if you're familiar with it. It's like a wealth of information, of marketing information. And he's got like keyword tools and things like that. But anyways, it's like, if you are a good writer, or, not even just you, if you want to incorporate other like guest speakers and things like that into the website, do it. It can only help you, but make sure that it's actually like valuable information. Just don't throw stuff up there just to do it because you want to rank.
So I always like sharing what I do just because I think it's fun to talk about. And hopefully it inspires people. But when I first started my blog, All About Your Benjamins, I kept it separate.
I love that.
One, because that's the people that I was reading: Josh Brown, Michael Batnick, Ben Carlson, like everybody I was reading at the time, their blogs were separate. So I kind of thought that's what you're supposed to do. And I also thought that the reason I wanted to start the blog was I wanted to help educate people, no strings attached. So I felt like if it was off of my company website, there was no ulterior motive. It was just to give it information. And if somebody really wants to work with me, they'll find their way over. It's not that hard.
Yeah.
So I've had All About Your Benjamins for 5 years now. And then when Thomas joined, we launched his blog off of the website as well. But I did launch a blog on the new RLS website, and the content that is there is different than I would write and Thomas would write. So very much of what we're trying to work with are people who are trying to find and align their values with their purpose. So they're entrepreneurial, they're risk takers, they want to take control of their destiny. So a lot of the writing that I'm doing on that, it's not so much what's a Roth IRA, it's not what's a conversion. It's more talking about, finding purpose and how that plays into your life and how finances can do that. But I want those blog posts to be something that somebody who understands that and is pursuing that will read and enjoy. And I want that to become our library. So it's not going to be a lot of financial literacy per se. It's going to be more about philosophy and mindset and values that I hope the people we work with will appreciate. They'll read it for a while and they're like, okay, these guys get what I want to get out of life. Let me see if it's right working with them.
Yeah, I love that approach. It's like it keeps it consistent. It keeps the messaging seamless across the board. And I do like the fact that you do have the separate blogs too, where you can be more free and do your thing on that. And then also I think to kind of go back to SEO and things, definitely link them together, keep them separate, but also if they want to learn more about you personally, you can always link to your personal blogs and things like that.
Yeah, I think that's a great idea. And I didn't I had no reason to want to blog on the company website until I did this rebrand, because I never really had who I was really trying to go after before. I was just anybody that I liked, I wanted to work with regardless. But now there's more of a mindset that really excites me as an advisor that I want us to be known for. I want us to be known as the firm that our clients will look back on life and have no regrets, because we've taken from the life planning movement and combined it with some other things that we've helped them figure out what's most important. We've made that the center of their plan, and we've built the finances around along the way. So they've done the things. My ultimate goal, and I shared this on my last podcast, was I want the RLS circle to almost become like a lifestyle brand, that people wear that circle, the swag that we might create one day, as almost like a badge of honor. Hey, I'm in control of my destiny. I'm living the life along my principles. Nobody else is. And I want people to be proud of that. So I envision one day that we'll have hats and different things. It'll have that logo. It will not have anything RLS Wealth on it. It's just going to be the circle. And if I do a good enough job, people will know what that circle means. And I think of that altruist hat. You guys have your double circle. I was nervous to do the circle because I didn't want it to be too close to you guys, because I was using you as inspiration. So I didn't want it to be a copy, but I have a story I haven't told yet about what the circle represents and how it can be interpreted and what it could mean. It's dotted lines. So each of those dotted lines can so anyways, one day I'm going to write about that. Here's why we have this circle. Here's what it can mean. And it has a story behind it, which I think will be the beginning of the brand development of this lifestyle brand of our firm.
Yeah, I love that. And your audience will really love that too. The fact that you put so much thought into everything that you do, and, there's intention, there's meaning behind it. That means a lot, and they know that if you're going to take that much time to put that much detail in that, you're definitely going to do that when you're servicing them. And, creating this website that has more information and all those things, it really turns you into a resource center for them. Whether they're working with you personally or whatever, they could turn to your site to get free jewelry that they can apply to their life right away.
Right. All right. So we hit website. That's a good one. We're bumping up on time. So we've got 3 more things you listed. I don't think we're going to get them all because I took us down random paths. You get to pick. We've got emotional IQ, setting up your digital marketing, and being consistent. Of those 3, what is the most important one we cover before we get the last few questions? And maybe we'll do a part 2 with you and hit the other ones.
Okay, cool. I think, one thing from here, be consistent, I think is one of the most important things. The other stuff you can learn along the way, and you probably will organically as you're doing it, but don't be afraid to just start, just start, and know that you don't have to use you or other advisors as inspiration. Don't try to duplicate exactly what you're doing. I had an acting coach, like I shared with you prior to recording this. Like, she always said, when you're developing your character, just know you're leaving a piece of your soul in that character, right? So when you're creating content or you're creating your brand or whatever, you are injecting your essence into it. So it's never going to be like anybody else's. And that's the beauty of it. And really cultivate that and own that and let the world see that. So don't be afraid to go hit publish. Don't be afraid to record. Don't be afraid to be raw and imperfect, and keep going, because you will attract the right audience and the right clients that you want to work with.
And I think sometimes consistency scares people. I think it's great to be able to say every Wednesday I'm going to drop a blog post, but I also think consistency can be you're constantly doing it. There may not be a regular published schedule because you own your firm, you have a team, you're a parent, and you're trying to create content, but people know that there's going to be something coming from you every once in a while. I think if you can get to regular publish, there's a lot of benefits to that, but don't let the lack of being able to produce the same day, every week, every month, whatever it might be, prevent you from starting. And as you get into it, you might be able to develop a more consistent routine. I lucked out and had no strategy. My consistency was, you're going to get a lot of stuff from me, but it's just going to be random and it may ebb and flow. Like, I would go months where I'd have 3 podcasts in 1 month and I'd have none for 2, because I would get so excited and I would just publish them right away. But I'm trying to get better. And I actually have a calendar. This will be the first time I've done it. I'm actually going to build out a content strategy for 2021. Awesome. Here's when All About Your Benjamin's going to publish. Here's when Harmless Wealth is going to publish. Advisor Tomorrow newsletter. Like, I'm going to have it down because I have enough of them I'm trying to do and I can do it, but I need a little bit more structure. And then hopefully that structure will build a little bit more loyalty with the audiences because they know when it's going to come. But I don't think you have to get there right out the gate. The other thing I was going to say, I think it's natural when you first get started to look to somebody that you're already reading and you like their style and to try to mimic them. And I think that's okay, because that may give you a way that you want to try to communicate to get started. And then you realize over time that that's not you, and you tweak it to where your voice really is. So an example would be, I really wanted to write about investments heavy early on. So I would try to write like Michael Batnick and Morgan Housel, and they weren't very good. And then but I did it and it got me writing. And then I realized, okay, I can write about these other things. And then when I started to change my tone, change my voice, change my topics, I started to get positive feedback from my audience, which told me, okay, you can like writing about investing, but your folks don't care about it. So maybe like for every 10 pieces of content, one of them gets to be investment because you get to do it for yourself, but the bulk of them needs to be this other area where your survey could come in. So I think that maybe use those people you like as inspiration, maybe kind of mimic a little bit of what they're doing. Obviously don't copy their work. Right. And then allow that to build the reps for you to find your voice, because eventually your voice will come and it won't be where you started.
Exactly. And the cool thing, like what you said, being spontaneous with your posting and not, adhering to a schedule right away. Listen, like, you look back and you got a library set up for you, and now you know what works and what doesn't work. So with that knowledge, you're going to be able to go and build this strategy now. Had you tried to like build a strategy without having that content, you probably wouldn't be able to build like a really like strong strategy.
And going back to, your audience, I think you also have to know yourself. So some people have to be very organized. They have to have it all planned out, and they have to map out the whole year's worth of content to find this arc of what their narrative is going to be. If that's you, that's fine. Me, I've tried that. I am like, when the creativity comes, I've got to do it then, or at least get my thoughts down and come back to it later. So I can't force myself to sit down every Monday morning and write for 2 hours. For me, that's not the way it works. For me, I get an idea and I got to go do it now. Like, this podcast happened because I was like, I forget exactly what it was, but the moment the idea came to me, and I emailed you then, and we got this set up. It wasn't something that I planned way in advance. So no matter your personality type, you can make it work. You just have to really be honest with how you operate. And then that's the way you need to structure it.
For sure.
All right, let's take the tacticalness to one more deep level before we wrap up. And what are some tools that you would recommend advisors look into to help with this, building their brand or distributing their content?
Yeah. I mean, at Altruist, we use HubSpot to like build like our page and stuff. And it's such a great technology, and it's really user friendly. So I really recommend HubSpot, and they have like tutorials and things like that really help you. Another one, when you're looking for like, somebody to help you build your website or editing or whatever, Upwork is fantastic. There is like a plethora of talent on that website. We've hired so many people on there to help us out. And that's a really great resource for anybody in business, really. And then, like I mentioned a little earlier, Neil Patel's website is fantastic. Like, I don't know how that guy produces so much like content and resources. That's a really great one if you want to learn and really dive into marketing. And then one of my favorite guys is Seth Godin. Like, he's just the coolest. I love how his mind works. He's so creative. He's so outside the box. So I would definitely check out those resources and those people.
So is Upwork better than Fiverr? Is the talent on Upwork better than Fiverr? I've heard a lot of people mention Upwork. I've always gone to Fiverr, but
I do like Fiverr, but I think for professionals, I think Upworks is better.
Okay.
Like, I find that the quality of work from Upworks is a little bit better than Fiverr. Okay. But again, it depends on like the individual. So definitely take your time to research and talk to the person that you're about to hire too.
Sounds good. And I'm a big Seth Godin fan as well. I'm actually I know he doesn't teach it, but I'm doing his alt MBA program in February. I'm excited and a little nervous as well because it's supposed to be super intense.
Oh my God, that's awesome.
So it'll be fun. All right. So you have dropped a lot of great thoughts, actionable items, and then now tools and people to follow. Time to wrap it up. So everybody gets the same question, and I've reworded it so it's not as wordy as before. But basically, what is your edge? What do you see differently than your peers that separates you from the rest of them?
Yeah, this is like a really good question. It kind of like stumps me a little. Like, whenever you have to think about yourself, it's like, wait, what? I don't know what to say. But honestly, like, this may be a really cheesy answer, but I really don't have an ego when it comes to marketing or execution. Like, when I go in to work every day, like, I go in with the mindset of like, how am I going to collaborate with my team and really make every single person here successful? And, it helps like when we get into kind of sticky situations, like with content or what have you, just to go in and try to be as diplomatic as possible and like kind of put your biases aside and just taking a moment to like hear everybody and what they're saying and what everybody's trying to achieve and try to come to some kind of agreement has really been my edge. I feel like, work with authors or anybody in the past. It just helps us be a stronger team, which then allows us to produce even better content going forward, So I think that's my edge. Just try to really make a space that's safe for everyone to do their best.
I don't think it's cheesy at all.
Okay.
And I liken it to, I think that can apply to advisors as leaders. Now, this has nothing to do with content, but a little rant I'll do before we wrap up. Yeah. I think that for so long, advisory firms have always been about the CEO, whether it's named after them, which is fine, nothing wrong with that. Yeah. But it's always them. And then you've got the junior advisor, the support advisor. I think that if you could put your ego aside, again, rising tide lifts all boats, and shine your light as the leader, put your ego away and shine it on your team, then that empowers them, let them have their voice. And ultimately that's going to be good for your firm. So I think that while that is totally different than what we're talking about, the fact that you mentioned ego and putting that aside and not having one has helped you. I think that it can help a lot of advisors out there that are in a leadership role of, don't make it about you. Let your team shine. And if your team is shining, maybe you don't get as much press or recognition, but at the end of the day, it's about helping people in your firm doing better. Your firm's going to do better if more people are shining than just everything going to you. So exactly. little rant that triggered. All right. So
Jason for that, man. Like, I mean, just like, everybody loves Jason, but he's one of the coolest dudes, just super humble, super laid back. And like, everybody at the company has the chance to like do their best work and like they feel safe to do so. So it's important.
Jason's somebody that I look up to, and like as I progress as a business owner and business person, I hope that I can build a body of work that isn't the same. I'm not going to start an altruist type of company, but build a body of work where I'm impacting a lot of different areas. And I would love to get to a point where I do it quieter like he has. I'll never forget. I talked to him when altruist was like, this was like the alpha mode, like even before beta. And I had no idea who he was. So he reached out. I had this phone call with him, thought he was a real cool guy. I had no idea. We scheduled a second phone call. And before the second phone call, I was like, let me just find out who this guy is. And I was like, holy shit. Like I had no idea that he had done all this stuff, because like there wasn't as much Twitter back then. And I would say that I am louder. I'm definitely louder than Jason. And I've done that. It's gotten the business and me to a certain point. I kind of want to go a little bit more stealth mode with what I have in plans to build in the future, and just do it quietly and just do real good work and not make it a big deal. And then let it one day, everybody hears about it later on. It'll be tough because I like to talk, obviously. So
I do too, man.
All right, Shabana, I appreciate you taking the time and having this great conversation. I think it was amazing. I do think that in the future we'll do a round 2 and pick up some of the other things we didn't get to. But we started going down some good paths that I wasn't about to end. So I appreciate you taking the time. I appreciate all the work you're doing at Altruist. I love what you guys are doing. I love what you're providing for us advisors. So keep on doing what you're doing. Where can everybody find you?
LinkedIn is probably best. Obviously, shout out to LinkedIn. So yeah, just find me on there, Shabana Siyed. Thanks to Altruist, I'm back on Twitter as well. I'm getting familiar with it. And that is SSIYED.
All right. I'll link to all those. I'll link to Altruist as well. Those will be in the show notes over on justincastelli.io/blog. So you can go there to get that. Everybody, thanks for listening. Thanks for watching if you're watching this on YouTube. And we'll see you all in the next episode.
Thank you.